After 20 years together, my husband told me he doesn't love me, shattered our kids by announcing a divorce, watched me build an escape plan, and now suddenly wants to talk. And I genuinely don't know if I'm fighting for my marriage or letting the man who broke us ruin me again. No, this isn't a post about divorce. At least I'm still desperately hoping it isn't. But I'm standing in a place I never imagined I'd be after 20 years with the man I thought would be by my side forever. And I'm terrified because I love him, because we have children who depend on us, and because I don't want to be the woman who stays in a situation that's quietly destroying her. So I'm trying to figure out what the next step should even be, and I feel completely directionless. After 16 years of marriage, 20 years together total, my husband, 42 male, told me he wants a divorce. It didn't happen during an argument or in the middle of some dramatic scene. It came after months of coldness, silence, and emotional distance, so heavy I could practically feel it pushing me out of the room. Months where he stopped touching me, stopped sharing anything with me, stopped even looking at me like I was someone he once loved. I kept brushing it off, telling myself it was stress or work or a phase. I kept trying to reach for him, but it felt like every attempt just bounced off a wall. And then came the night, everything shattered. Before hanging up the phone, I told him I love you. The same words I've said thousands of times, the same words that used to make him soften. But this time nothing. Just silence. When I asked again, gently, hoping he'd laugh it off like before and tell me I was overthinking, he didn't. He just said it, plain emotionless. That he doesn't love me anymore. That I've lost my spark. That we argue too much. That he can't do this anymore. It was like being hit by a train I never saw coming, even though all the warning signs had been there. We stared at each other for a long moment, both of us frozen in the reality of what he'd said. Something inside me cracked open in a way I can't fully describe, pain and clarity mixing together in a single breath. I told him I would never beg anyone to stay with me or love me. That I deserve better than that. And then I walked away before I collapsed, because the urge to crumble right there in front of him was overwhelming. What followed was one of the worst weeks of my life. I've cycled through every emotion imaginable. Grief so deep it makes my chest ache, anger that burns unexpectedly, anxiety that wakes me up in the middle of a night shaking, numbness that scares me because it feels like giving up. I keep looking at him and trying to connect the man I loved, the boy I met when we were young, the man who held me through childbirth, the partner I believed would grow old with me, with the person now telling me he doesn't want me, doesn't love me, doesn't see a future with me. I meant my marriage vows with everything inside me. I'll love you till the day I die. I thought that meant showing up even when things weren't perfect. I stayed when we fought. I stayed when he shut down and refused to talk. I stayed when he took me for granted, when he only saw my flaws, when I felt like I was holding our marriage together by myself. I stayed because I believed love was supposed to be the long-haul kind, the kind that pushes through seasons of hardship and comes out stronger on the other side. I thought if I just kept loving him, kept fighting, kept trying, we'd eventually find each other again the way we always used to. I imagined us older, wiser, sitting on a porch someday laughing about how we survived all the storms life threw at us. But now he's looking at me like the storm itself. Like I'm something he needs to get away from. We have 3 children together, 10, 4, and just 1.5 years old. My babies. My heart. My entire world. And the cruelest part of all of this is knowing that no matter how fiercely I love them, I cannot shield them from this pain. I can hold them, feed them, comfort them through every nightmare and skin me, but I cannot protect them from the slow destruction of the life they've known. It feels like failing them, even though I know this isn't something I caused. 3 days after that initial conversation, after hearing the words that cracked my whole life in half, he kept his distance. He buried himself in work and acted like nothing needed to be addressed. He didn't come to me, didn't try to talk, didn't ask if I was okay, even once. I waited and waited, but I realized I was delaying the inevitable. So I forced myself to approach him again, even though every part of me was already exhausted from trying to hold myself together. I asked him why. Why now? Why like this? Why he wouldn't even attempt to fix what was broken before deciding to burn the whole thing down. And instead of owning his feelings, instead of just telling me he was unhappy, he twisted it around and said he was doing me a favor because I am unhappy. As if pretending I wanted this somehow made it easier for him to justify leaving. I told him he was projecting. That if he had the courage to be honest, he would simply say the truth. He is unhappy. But he immediately got defensive, accusing me of judging his emotions, as if I hadn't spent the last 20 years trying to understand and soothe them. And then he laid out the scenario like it was some kind of generous compromise. We'd still live together for the kids. He'd pay the mortgage and bills. We'd coexist under the same roof, but no longer be husband and wife, in name or in reality. Something inside me snapped when he said that. I told him I would not live in that kind of limbo. Either we're married or we're not. If we are not, then I am not staying here. I will figure out how to support myself and our children on my own. We would only communicate for their sake. Nothing more. No pretending. No half-love. No walking corpse of a marriage. And he said, okay. Just like that. No hesitation. No sadness. No fight. Just, okay. Like I'd asked him to pick up milk on the way home. So, I did the only thing I could. I made a plan. Through the heartbreak, through the panic attacks, through the moments where breathing felt like drowning, I started planning for a life without him. I spoke to my employer about increasing my hours. I reached out to his parents so they wouldn't be blindsided, and because I knew I'd need help with the kids. I called my own family and explained what was happening and why I might need more support while I rebuild my life. As awful as it was, having a plan, any plan, gave me a tiny bit of stability in the chaos. Something to cling to while my marriage was dissolving around me. I wanted to start packing. Not because I wanted to leave, but because it felt like the only way to regain even a sliver of control. But the moment I touched the first box, I froze. The kids. They deserve to know why I'd been crying, why the air in the house felt heavier, why mommy might suddenly be packing their things. They're sensitive, they notice everything, and I didn't want them scared and confused. So I texted him, calmly, clearly, telling him we needed to talk to the kids. That it wasn't fair to leave them in the dark. That they needed to hear it from both of us, together.
He didn't respond.
Not that day. Not the next. Not the one after that. 3 days of silence, while I begged him, literally begged him, to acknowledge that our children deserved honesty. 3 days of being ignored by the man who claims to be making this decision for the good of the family. 3 days of me holding our home together with shaking hands while he acted like none of us existed. Over the weekend, something inside me snapped into focus. If the kids didn't learn what was happening by Saturday night, we'd have to wait an entire week to tell them because Sunday nights are sacred.
School nights.
Nights where their little hearts need calm and routine, not trauma they can't yet name. I didn't want to blindside them right before bed on a school night. I didn't want their first experience of heartbreak to be followed by math tests and spelling quizzes the next morning. So I texted him again. Again. I reminded him again that the kids needed to know. That we needed to tell them, not I alone. That I couldn't pack, plan, or breathe until we faced this. He finally replied, short and cold, like he was agreeing to take out the trash. Fine.
We can talk to them tonight.
I thought I would crumble when the moment came. I imagined my voice breaking, imagined collapsing into tears in front of them. But when the kid sat on the couch and he opened his mouth, when I heard him say the words, "Your mom and I are getting a divorce," everything in me went silent. My children's eyes shot to me immediately. Not to him.
To me. For truth.
For reassurance. For safety. And when I nodded, just that small motion, the reality slammed into them. I watched the recognition spread across their faces like a storm rolling in. Then came the sobbing. Deep, shaking, terrified sobs from two hearts far too small to hold this kind of pain. And then, then I watched him pull them into his arms, cuddling them, stroking their hair, pretending to be their comfort. And rage bloomed in my chest like fire.
How dare he?
How dare he hurt them like this, shatter their childhood, take a sledgehammer to their innocence, and then try to soothe them like he wasn't the one holding the hammer. How dare he be the source of their heartbreak, and then try to be the remedy? How dare he look at their tears with concern when he is the reason they are crying at all? And for what? Because he's bored? Because he doesn't love me? Because marriage stopped being fun? What happened to vows? What happened to promises? What happened to choice? To choosing love even when it's hard? Because marriage isn't just sparks and butterflies, it's commitment. It's waking up every day and saying, I choose you, even when everything is imperfect. Especially then. Over the next few days, questions poured out of our oldest. So many questions. Some I answered gently, carefully, choosing every word like it was glass. Others I redirected toward him because I refuse, absolutely refuse, to lie or shade the truth to protect him from the consequences of his choices. I refuse to weaponize their pain. But I also refuse to erase reality. One night she asked, Isn't a vow a promise? Why are you breaking your promise? My heart broke all over again. I knelt down, looked her in the eyes, and told her the truth. I didn't break my promise. I still love your dad. And if I could fix this, I would. He heard me. He was standing right there. Later that night, he approached me awkwardly, almost timidly, and started with, "We need to figure out." I cut him off before he could finish. The words came out steady, even though inside I was shaking. "There is no we. You decided to give up on us." He looked stunned, like I'd slapped him. The shock on his face was almost childlike. But he didn't get angry.
He didn't argue.
He didn't defend himself. He just stood there, absorbing my words like someone who had finally realized the gravity of what he'd done. A few days later, 3 more days of silence, of passing each other like shadows in the home we built together, he finally messaged me. It was stiff, almost formal, like he was reaching out to someone he barely knew. He said he wanted to sit down and talk. Then he asked me to brunch, as if a public place and a plate of eggs could somehow cushion everything he dropped on me like a bomb. I went because I needed clarity. I needed something that resembled honesty after months of emotional neglect and avoidance. When we sat down, he looked nervous in a way I hadn't seen since we were teenagers. He kept folding and unfolding his napkin, unable to look at me for more than a second at a time. He told me he'd heard what I'd said to our oldest. He asked if I really wanted to try to make things work.
The question shattered me.
Because the truth was complicated. Yes, there was still a part of me that desperately wanted my family, my marriage, the future I had built in my head. But no, there was also a part of me that felt too broken, too betrayed, too deeply wounded by the man sitting across from me. So, I told him the only thing that felt honest. If you don't love me, there's nothing to work with. He shook his head quickly. I didn't exactly mean it, he said. As if "I don't love you" is a phrase a husband of 16 years can casually throw out like it's nothing. As if the impact could be undone with a vague correction. I told him he needed to figure out what he meant because he had already fractured my heart, traumatized our children, and pushed me into planning a new life, one without him in it. I had been meeting with my employer, arranging childcare, confronting the terrifying reality that I'd have to rebuild everything. He asked what my plans were, and I asked him why he cared. He looked genuinely hurt. "Because I do care," he said quietly. "I'd rather go hungry than watch you and the kids struggle." And for a moment I believed him. I saw something sincere flicker across his face, something familiar, something I hadn't seen in him for months. Then just as quickly he shifted. Suddenly I was hard to live with, difficult to love, predictable, reactive. He slipped back into the old pattern, the one where I am the problem, where I am the reason he shuts down, where everything wrong in the marriage rests on my shoulders. I told him I hadn't once attacked his character during any of this, not once, yet he still felt compelled to tear me down while asking if our marriage was salvageable. I told him if he truly wanted to try again, it would take long, intense work. Therapy for him. Therapy for me.
Couples therapy.
Family therapy. Therapy for the kids. A full restructuring of the life we'd allowed to rot from neglect. No quick fixes. No starting fresh without addressing the damage. I told him to really think about it and let me know how he wanted to proceed. Now it has been a week since we told the kids. Our oldest still asks questions no child should have to ask. Questions I can't answer because I barely understand what's happening myself. Tonight, he said he wants to talk again after the kids go to bed. I don't know what to expect. I don't know if he's going to say he wants to rebuild, or if this is another moment of hesitation before he walks away again. I don't know if he's fighting for us or fighting his guilt. I don't know if I'm holding on to a dying marriage or a salvageable one. So, I'm asking you, people outside my emotional hurricane, is it worth continuing to fight for this? Is it worth trying again, going to the same man who once broke me and my kids, my emotions, my kids' emotions, while enjoying his affair with some other woman? Or am I clinging to the ghost of something he already let die long before he said the words out loud? Thank you for listening.